Are you a perfectionist? You might be the first to raise your hand, but then there might be some of you that are perfectionists but actually don't know it. I'll be the first to admit I am absolutely 100% a perfectionist. Trying to be perfect makes me feel safe, secure, and valued. I've been doing it for so long, it truly feels like part of my DNA. And I would be lying if I said my perfectionist tendencies haven't proven successful. But the reason you're listening to this episode right now is because I came across our guest story about how her young adult life of perfectionism came crashing down on her, and I got curious. Samantha Calonita is who you're going to be hearing today. What intrigued me about Samantha's story was she had a panic attack on her wedding day, and she blamed it on being a perfectionist. This was one of the first times that I saw the negative side of perfectionism, and I had to know more. In today's story, we are talking about that drive behind needing to be perfect. We all do it for a reason, so it's important to ask yourself, what is my reason for trying to be perfect? Within that, we talk about the unconscious patterns that propels perfectionism, but perhaps most importantly, we talk about how to overcome this drive to be perfect. Samantha described this time of her life as dismantling who she was to become who she's meant to be. Okay, how freaking powerful is that? You have to lose yourself to find yourself, and that's what Samantha did, and she's here to tell us her story. You're listening to the Cultivating Curiosity podcast, where everyone has a story to share. This is the... Okay. State your name and what you do.
So I'm Samantha Calonita, and I am a certified life and career coach based out of Savannah, Georgia.
Where did you grow up? Paint a picture for me of the town that you grew up in and the neighborhood that you grew up in.
Sure. So I grew up on Long Island in New York. You may hear that come out in my voice here and there, and more so as I either have a beer or drink my coffee. But I grew up in a lovely little town. I actually grew up across the street from my high school.
Oh, cool.
So I could see my school from my bedroom window. I was never late for school, so I'll say that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very safe little sweet town. You know, we would ride our bikes to our neighbors' houses and walk to school every day, and maybe I was a bit of the party house when I was growing up. So there was always people at our house. It was always full, kids coming and going, which was really fun to grow up with, actually. Mm-hmm. I really thrived off of like the community and the connection and just the excitement of my friendships.
Yeah.
And I was definitely the overachiever of my... Mm-hmm. As long as I can remember, I was a straight A student. I was always like getting elected as president of the class if there was a class election. Mm-hmm. In fact, from 7th grade to 12th grade, I was the president of my class.
Wow. Yeah. I think that goes down in history as the longest running presidential.
Yes. The town was New Hyde Park Memorial High School. That's what it was. It was New Hyde Park in New York on Long Island. And yeah, I was president of our class all 6 years, I guess, of high school. I was always captain of my soccer team or my field hockey team, of our cheerleading team. I loved being a leader. I loved bringing people together. And I liked being the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I know it doesn't sound, maybe it sounds a little egotistical, but that was my perfectionism rising to the top. I didn't want to just be a part of the team. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to know that either people were looking up to me and that they approved of me.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one, the approval.
Yeah.
Now, Samantha, paint for me a picture before we get into all that perfectionism, which I cannot wait to dive into. Paint a picture for me of your family life growing up and try to remember what your favorite childhood memory was.
Okay. So I am the youngest of 3 girls. Mm-hmm. I love being the baby of my family. I think everybody needs a big sister.
Yeah.
I shared a room with my middle sister for our entire lives till she moved out of the house. So I never had any privacy or space, but I kind of loved it. Mm-hmm. I loved jumping on the beds with her and rearranging our room and creating forts and making up stories. I guess I would probably say that my favorite memories were playing in our backyard. And we played all sorts of imagination games. But my sisters and I, we would play Saved by the Bell.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know, it's not a real game, but we would all just pick a character. And I was the youngest, so I was always Lisa Turtle, which is fine.
I love that.
But we would always play silly imagination games in the backyard, like Saved by the Bell or Charmed, and we would try to cast spells and make concoctions. And it was just really a lovely way to grow up, being kind of guided and protected by my big sisters.
Mm.
I looked up to them my whole life, and I still look up to them. They're definitely the biggest part of my childhood. And I will say that talking about my childhood is a little funny for me because I lived through the age of about 25, 26, suppressing a trauma from early childhood. So it's almost like my life is two that kind of have to get woven together as an adult. So there's this kind of idyllic childhood where we had friends over all the time in a backyard with a pool and my sisters and I playing and jumping in the leaves in the fall. And then there's the part of me that remembers that some of that was a facade. Because from about the ages of 4 to 8, I had experienced some pretty severe sexual trauma. And as a coping mechanism, I repressed it. And also created some beliefs about myself that would lead me towards perfectionism in the future. So just like, I know this is part of your storytelling, right? So for me, it's odd a little bit to weave together those two pieces of me that like really traumatized, hurt child, pushed down all the pain in a desperate attempt to be normal.
Yeah.
And then the kid who actually really did enjoy her life.
Yeah.
It wasn't just trauma, but they were interwoven, and it was pretty hard to reconcile with the kid. So I hope that paints a more full picture, and feel free to ask any questions if I'm not explaining it well enough.
No, yeah, I mean, it's great, and I'm really glad that you shared that because you're being so open with, this is what my life looked like on the outside, and to a degree, yes, I realize how fortunate and privileged and what an amazing life I had, but I was also dealing with this really hard thing as well.
Yes, there was always that undercurrent of, oh, what if they find out? What if they know that I'm broken? What if they hear the secret? What if it ruins everything? Or what if they know I'm not really good enough and who I say I am? Because I always felt like a little broken kid, even though everything outside of me said, you're good. All the achievements said, you're good enough, you're lucky, you're so lucky. And I was, and I was also a traumatized child who was hurting.
It probably also made you feel guilty for feeling that brokenness as well, because you're like, I have all these great achievements, a beautiful supporting family, great sisters. Like, why am I feeling this brokenness inside?
Exactly. What right do I have to feel broken and to feel guilty? And so, yeah, the guilt was a tough road to overcome. And sometimes it's still there. You know, I think especially women are generally conditioned to feel guilt a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, as with anything else, it's just another hurdle to overcome, another pattern to work on.
Yeah.
And I don't shy away from doing the work.
That's right, girlfriend. That's great. So, really quick, tell me what dreams you had for your life growing up. Like, paint a picture for me of your life, like after high school, going into college, and then that dream life that you were living, that big girl job in New York City, all the things.
Well, as a little kid, I was convinced I was going to be the first woman president.
Yes.
Couldn't have told me different. 100% convinced I would be president of the United States. So that's what I wanted.
You can still be the president of the United States. I can totally see it.
You could. And when I graduated high school, I went to college in Washington, D.C. So I was like, well, now it's going to happen. Yeah. I'm going to be the president. It's obviously occurring. But that wasn't really the case. Turns out I'm not that into politics. So that is a prerequisite for being president, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah. But what my big dream was, as I recall it, I always wanted to work. I loved the idea of working. I remember wishing I could just get through school and go to work every day. Now I'm like, what was I thinking? But
it's this dream that we have, like growing up watching the movies, Legally Blonde, like all the things, they glamorize it.
Yeah, I wanted to wear the suit and be important.
Yeah.
And my dream at that time was to start a big nonprofit organization. I always wanted to do something good. I always wanted to do something meaningful and fulfilling. And I wanted to be important and be successful. So I figured I would run a big nationwide nonprofit that did tons of good in the world, and likely that would have been focused on like women and children. And that was just my big pipe dream for one day. One day I would do this thing. And it wasn't too far off from what I actually did. It just didn't turn out to be the dream that fit for the real me.
Why do you say that?
Well, it ended up, I did. I ran a big nonprofit in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first job I got out of grad school. I graduated from Columbia University, and I got a job at a really great nonprofit that helped post 9/11 veterans returning from the military to transition into civilian careers.
Hmm.
And it was wonderful work. It was nationwide, and we helped tens of thousands of people to transition into meaningful careers and really honor our veterans. And it was good work. But it wasn't my work.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't what I was called to do. And while I love being able to help people, it just wasn't my passion and purpose.
You probably went to work every day feeling that resistance, like something is just off here.
It happened a few years in. I definitely outgrew it. I guess maybe that's what it is. I outgrew my dream.
Mm-hmm.
Needed to dream bigger and dream in alignment with the person I became. Because there was a point in my life that my now husband, then fiance, he was deployed for 3 years in a row. Mm-hmm. And I took that job at our nonprofit, and I felt so connected to our family and what we were going to go through, to our veterans and their families and my staff. And I thrived and I loved it. And also my husband was deployed, so I had tons of free time. Mm-hmm. But there was a point in my world where I outgrew it. I had started doing all that inner work on myself. My husband was home now. We were starting our lives fresh, and my dreams had changed. Mm. But my career needed to change too.
Yeah. Samantha, walk us through your wedding day. This is a story that instantly captivated me when we connected on Facebook. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your wedding day? What happened?
Okay. So I would like to say that my journey started off with a bang, but in all actuality, it started off with a panic attack on my wedding day. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm originally from New York, and I had this big destination wedding in Savannah, Georgia, my little dream city, and I did not know about Savannah's weather. And it was the moment that the thunder crashed.
Literal thunder.
Literal thunder. Booming thunder on my wedding day.
Oh.
That my eyes went wide like a deer in the headlights, and I just saw flashing before my eyes all of the planning and the details and the expectations and the pressure and the what will they think of me's just running down the drain with that water. And so my eyes are wide. I look around. I have zero tools to deal with this. So I grab a bottle of white wine and my 2 older sisters, and I make a beeline for the bathroom. And I remember just sitting on this cold marble floor in my white poofy dress, having my very first panic attack. Mm. And I was so nervous. I didn't know what was going on in my body. It felt like my heart was beating out of my chest, and I was hard to breathe. I was like hyperventilating, and all these worries just started to build and compound in my head. What are they going to think of me? It's ruined. What about all the money I spent? My New York family's not going to get it anyway. They're going to think this was a waste. I mean, you name it, I thought it. Mm-hmm. And all my body could do, thank goodness for intuition, but all my body knew to do was just say, breathe, Samantha, breathe. So that's all I tried to do, was just breathe through that moment, breathe through those thoughts. And my oldest sister came over and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, Samantha, no matter what happens with this weather, I promise you that at the end of the day, you and Michael are going to be married. And tomorrow you get to leave this all behind and go on your honeymoon. And it's going to be so beautiful. And something in that immediately kind of calmed me down and brought me back to the present moment. And then she gave me that patented tough love that an older sister can do. Mm-hmm. And she said, but when you come back from your honeymoon, we're going to get a handle on this. Because this is how you want to start the rest of your life with your husband. And she was right. As big sisters nearly always are, she was exactly right. This was going to be a turning point for me. It was either continue to push through your life hopping from achievement to achievement and pressure-filled moment to pressure-filled moment, ignoring the impacts of anxiety and perfectionism, or be brave and face it.
Hmm.
Make a change.
Wow. I mean, that's the scariest thing to do is really do all this inner work and look inside yourself. Oh my gosh, that is so scary. And I love that word that you used, bravery. It
Yeah.
does require so, so much bravery. So you go on your beautiful honeymoon in Cancun.
Yes.
You come back, you're like, okay, I'm getting a handle on this. So you hire your very first coach, your very first energy healer, and you start to do a lot of self discovery. And I think one of your first biggest realizations was, okay, being perfect is not so great. Like it really doesn't yield all these perfect results. So as you were doing this digging, what did you realize was the motivation behind your perfectionism? What was your why all along?
So it's really interesting that you asked that because it's so true. Like perfectionism on the outside seemed to work for me, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was a straight A student and I got into these great schools and I had a great job and promotions, but it didn't really work. It didn't work on the inside. And there were roots, deep roots that caused this perfectionism and then the anxiety within me that had to get dug up. So, underneath this perfectionism, the biggest thing was a belief that if I could just get other people to think I was good enough and to think I was okay and not broken, that maybe I could believe it too. And that stemmed from a trauma in my childhood. I experienced, unfortunately, sexual abuse in my childhood, which created a lot of coping mechanisms in me as a kid. And I think a really good coping mechanism for a 4-year-old, right? Like, really smart kid, go little Samantha, who tried to just take care of herself. And she decided that if other people could just think she was okay and that she was good enough and she was worth something, then she could believe it too. And so this trauma and the beliefs that it created, it propelled me into perfectionism. And along the way, I picked up these patterns that bolstered it. Patterns like really extreme self-criticism. I mean, I used to beat myself up like it was nobody's business. I can actually still recall a moment in first grade where I raised my hand and got a question wrong. I could still beat myself up over that if I chose to. I'm going to try not to, but
Mm-hmm.
it was extreme. I picked
Yeah.
up self-criticism, you know, negative self-talk, never knowing how to say no to something. I said yes to every project, every invitation till I burnt myself out. All these little unconscious patterns and choices bolstered this belief that if I could just create perfect results and
Mm-hmm.
get other people to believe that I was good enough, that maybe I could believe it too. And it pushed and pushed and pushed until it burst on my wedding day. And then it had to change.
Absolutely. So, what were some of the tools that you started to learn to help you overcome or deal with those perfectionism patterns? Because those are habits. You've been doing it your whole life. And I can relate to that. Like,
Yep.
there is just, it feels like a part of your DNA to an extent. So,
It does.
how do you overcome something like that?
Practice, which
Yeah.
is, they say practice makes perfect, but actually, in my case, I guess practice made imperfect and we'll go with
Yeah.
it. Because truly, it's practice. You're exactly right. They are decades long ingrained patterns of make a mistake and beat yourself up for 10 days over it. Where I had to learn awareness was the number one tool. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the first thing that my coach helped me to do is he would call it become an observer of your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
and to notice what you're doing. Because once you notice it, you can choose again.
Mm-hmm.
And that simple mantra of choose again is something I now repeat to all of my clients and in my head. Because instead of going into that pattern of, beating myself up, criticizing myself, saying, oh, you're so stupid, you're never going to get this right, it's take a breath, choose again. You're a human. You made a mistake. Let's learn something here. This could be fun. I forgive myself for making a mistake. Now we move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's done. All the drama disappears because you've actually dealt with the problem in the moment. So I learned how to become aware of my thoughts. I learned how to choose again. I learned forgiveness, which is such a tool, and it really does. It breaks those ties. It breaks emotional ties. It breaks ties to the past. It sets you free. I learned about self compassion big time, to be as kind to myself as I was to other people around me. There were so many things that got me through that time and helped me to reframe those patterns that were so deep within me. And it's simple concepts, right? But simple is not always easy.
No, not at all. I feel like us achievers, like perfectionism, straight A students, we try, it's like a part of our DNA once again to overcomplicate the simple things.
Yes. Amen.
It's like so frustrating too.
So frustrating because all you want, I mean, perfectionism is like all about results,
Yeah.
getting the perfect result, getting the A plus, getting turning that project into your boss on time. And for me, it was always getting that pat on the back. It made me feel so good. But looking back, I was like, wow, I really overcomplicated a lot of that. I did not need to be the first one into my office and the last one out every day. I didn't need to answer email at midnight to overcomplicate things and prove myself. But that's what I thought I needed at the time. And reframing that perfectionism, overcoming those patterns day by day, moment by moment. It's what I needed.
Let's talk about really quick how long it took you. I
Mm,
don't want to say that you're cured because I believe life is a journey, not a destination. So I
yeah.
know you're human, you still deal with things on the daily basis. But how many years have you been working on yourself?
It started in 2013, so it's 7 years since that panic attack. Honestly, almost to the day.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since that panic attack, and it was probably 3 full years of working on myself, doing that inner work before I changed really anything major in my outer world. There was a whole inner dismantling of that mindset that had to come before the outer dismantling of all the structures I built to support my perfectionism.
Wow. I love that word dismantling. And when we had our quick call a week ago, you said that as well. And I circled it in my notes because I was like, holy crap, that's it. Like she literally dismantled her whole life that she's ever known. And the first question that popped into my head was, how did you overcome the self doubt? Because you're truly dismantling these characteristics that are ingrained in you, that define you for your whole life. And I can only imagine, I suffer with doubt all the time, but I can only imagine the dismantling of who you are. Like, what a scary feeling that is.
It was. It's literally like the rugs getting pulled out from underneath you,
Yeah.
but it was for the best because what I was dismantling and unlearning was that I had given everybody outside of me the power to tell me who I was and if I was good enough. And over those 3 years that I was doing this work, I actually learned how to build my self-esteem from the inside. And so then changing other things wasn't so hard. I started to approve of myself first. And then if other people approved of me, cool, icing on the cake. But I already know, no matter what my job title is, or what grade I get on that paper, or this project, or what raise I get, I am a natural born leader. And I love that. I am great at bringing people together, hearing their ideas, and creating a strategy that is going to work. And then I'm kind of a data nerd. I love my data and my spreadsheets and finding patterns and analytics. That's who I am. Nobody can take those things from me. And I am also brave and resilient. And so when I knew myself, really knew myself, and I liked myself for the first time, maybe ever, it wasn't so scary. It wasn't full of doubt. I had moments of doubt, especially around other people who were scared for me, like my aunts and uncles and, my grandparents who did not understand what, life coaching was or career coaching and thought it was little bananas. But I knew who I was for the first time. And so the doubt didn't creep in nearly as much as you might think it would.
Wow, that's really powerful. So you're going through this whole transformation, self-discovery journey, and you and your husband do something really radical. You quit your jobs in New York and you're like, let's move to our favorite city of Savannah, Georgia. That is so amazing.
Thank you. I still get excited when you tell it to me. I'm like, oh my God, that's my life. I did
Yes.
that.
Well, what I love is you not only do that, but you also hike the Himalayas in India. You
Yes.
quit your big girl job downtown New York City.
Mhm.
Like, these are all really big events that I think a lot of us think of, okay, one day that'll happen. I mean, you said it yourself. You were waiting to move to Savannah, Georgia until retirement.
Yep.
Like, years and years down the road. And I think that's what a lot of people think. Okay, I'm going to put in my dues now.
Yep.
And one day those amazing things will happen. But you're so young and you were like, now or never.
Yes.
And that's a really big limiting belief I think a lot of us have, is that we have to wait until X date
Yep.
to live the life that we want to live. So, what would you say is the key, and perhaps it's a mindset for
hmm
you and your husband to take those big leaps of faith and be like, let's live this life?
For us, it's funny, like when you're doing this inner work, it sounds like it happened immediately, but like we said, it was at least 3 years. There's this Ernest Hemingway quote from The Sun Also Rises that it happened gradually and then suddenly.
Hmm.
That the work happened little by little by little, and then all of a sudden we were fed up with the life. All of a sudden we looked around, at least I would. I would look around at this life that everybody's supposed to want. I had a great job in New York City. I had a windowed office on Madison Avenue overlooking Grand Central Station. I had everything you're supposed to want. And it just felt so empty. It didn't mean anything to me anymore because those things, that job and that window and that wardrobe and that salary, it was all there in the past to prove to my parents, my boss, that invisible Facebook mob, that this was a good life. And the more work we did on ourselves, me and my husband, the more it just started to matter to us. Did we like our life? Did we want to come home to this every day?
Mm-hmm.
And it was January 1st, 2016. We were here in Savannah for a trip, and we were walking on Forsyth Park, which is kind of our Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked up at Michael and I just said, I don't want to wait one more minute. It hurts to wait one more minute. And I was actually, it's so silly, it's a small thing, but it's a very historical town, it's very colonial, so there's a lot of old steps. And I remember looking at this beautiful old brownstone with these gorgeous steps, and I said to him out loud, if we wait till we're 65 or 70 to move here, like, you have bad knees from the military. What if you can't climb those steps? What if we missed our chance to live our dream life? And I couldn't fathom missing the chance to live our dreams. I just knew that it was going to be worth the risk. And I guess that's what I have to say to other people. Trust that it's worth the risk. Because it's not nearly as scary as you think it is. It's so scary in your head, but in execution, it's exciting. Let it be exciting instead of so scary, because the payoff is so big.
Yeah. Oh man. So what does your life look like today, Samantha? Like, you seem like you're so happy. You truly are living like my version of a dream life down in Savannah. I've never even been to Savannah, Georgia. But after I talked to you on the phone a couple days ago, I like went on a huge Pinterest binge of like all these Savannah, Georgia pins.
It's so pretty.
Yes, it looks beautiful. So what is your life today?
So, I mean, it's so funny because we're talking about perfectionism. Like, my life's not perfect, but I love it. These days, I am very grateful. I have my dream job and I created it. When we moved down here, we knew we could restart with intention and purpose. So I started my coaching practice. I am now a life and career coach, helping other, busy, burnt out women to really find their purpose, to heal their inner patterns and their inner perfectionism and create their dreams. So that's kind of the best job in the world in my book. And I get to do it from my living room, which is also great, with my German Shepherd hanging out right here next to me.
It's amazing.
So I'm a very structured kind of girl. I mean, I wake up around the same time every day. I do my morning routine. I go to my desk. I do my work. I help my people. And I take breaks. And I walk in the sunshine. And I created a community of really wonderful women down here who are my friends and colleagues and confidants, and we have Thanksgivings together. Life is messy and full of mistakes, more than it ever was before. Running a business, nothing is perfect. And running a coaching business, it doesn't help you to be perfect. Your clients don't relate to perfect. They don't relate to that frozen smile of everything's great. I don't even like making that face.
Yeah.
They relate to authenticity. They relate to the panic attacks and the dark moments and getting through them. So overcoming my perfectionism has served me well in my business, and it serves me well in my life today. So life looks beautiful and sunshiny and messy and lovely.
And all the in between. That's
Yeah,
something I'm learning is life is not meant to be 100% sunshine and rainbows and happiness all
no,
the time. This is actually a fairly recent discovery for me because I thought something's wrong if like I don't feel that way or my life doesn't look that way, but really life is truly like if you look at nature for example, it's not sunshine and rainbows every single day. That's like the natural part of the universe is to have the rainy days, to have the snow, to have the sunshine, and that's we're a part of the universe. I believe that. And it's like we're meant to have those ebbs and flows as well.
absolutely. We also think we're supposed to have the same perfect level of energy every day. You know, if I don't get every single thing on my to-do list done, then I'm terrible. Or if I do get it done, then I'm amazing. It's like, well, we have rhythms just like nature. You know, sometimes it's a time for action, sometimes it's a time for rest. And learning to be at peace with having imperfect energy or not having it all together all the time. It's just layers and layers deeper of
Yep.
recovering from perfectionism. But at least this time, I get to enjoy the journey. You know, in the past, it was all about getting great results, straight A's, promotions, all that stuff. And now I still want to get good results. I want to have a thriving business and I want to help people and have a healthy body and family, but I want to enjoy the journey this time. That has become the priority for me.
I love that. Samantha, where can people find you on social media if they want to say hi, have a free discovery call, all the things?
For sure. I'm definitely all over social media. You can catch me on Instagram at Samantha_Calonita. It's a pretty unique name. Not that many people have it. And the place I hang out the most on Facebook is in my private Facebook group. It's called Heart Centered Women Find Your Purpose. And it's a really engaged group where I show up and I do lots of live videos and trainings. And it's, I think, the friendliest place on the internet. So those are great places to find me besides my website, SamanthaCalonita.com.
I love that. Now, Samantha, the last question I ask all of my guests is
Mhm.
how do you cultivate curiosity in your life?
Oh, I love curiosity. As a girl who could be very rigid and focused and perfectionist, curiosity is the key for me. I cultivate it by being outside, nature, and being still within nature gives me the space to be creative and to wonder about things. Where my very busy overthinking brain could get super focused, I actually cultivate curiosity in the quiet. Whether it's just in the shower, you know, in that quiet moment in the shower where you get the best ideas, in a meditation, sitting out with the trees. Nature helps me cultivate my curiosity, and quiet does too.
Love that. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. This was wonderful.